in the early stages, don't write for an audience. Don't worry if people won't like it. It's the wrong question to ask. Write for yourself first. Follow your curiosities. What are you trying to learn through this piece of writing? What fascinates you about this story? Follow that, and you'll find the confidence to keep going. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and writing coach. And each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. When I ask what writers are struggling the most with, the most common answer I get is some version of struggling with confidence. Confidence to get started, confidence to keep going. Will anyone like what I write? So they struggle with believing in themselves. They worry about whether what they're writing is worth reading. So in this episode, I'm going to focus on some mindset shifts to help you believe more in yourself and your ability to write the story. You wouldn't have the desire to write the story if you didn't have the capacity to do it. So let's get right to it. Number one, focus on process rather than the final product. So process over product. Often writers are in a rush to finish their novel. They want to get through it. And they rush through the story. And what happens most of the time is that the story is all on the surface. So they're more focused on the product than the process. They're writing what they think a reader wants, and they lose touch with the reason they felt compelled to write it in the first place. Now, you know me, I believe that your first draft should be exploratory. Clarity comes from engaging with your own material. It means slowing down, not writing in order, going from the first chapter to the second, third, and so on. It means probing the moments in your story that you're compelled to explore. It's not what you think a reader wants. Too many writers worry that people won't like what they write, so they're writing for this invisible audience. And then they get into analysis paralysis. Instead of writing the story they want to tell, they deform it to please this invisible audience. The first draft really is for you. You don't need to write the book from start to finish. You don't need to write it in order. As you write, you'll start to crystallize who and what your story is about and what themes you're exploring. And then you can think about how you can use structure to lay it out for the reader's experience. But your first draft is for you to crystallize what story you want to tell. Now, for more on first drafts, listen to episode 158, A Different Approach to Writing First Drafts. Now, often writers will include stuff because they're following advice they heard or read somewhere. For example, that something explosive should happen in the beginning to hook the reader, like a bar fight or a car chase, something that's not relevant to the main story problem. It's misleading, and it's just something that is inserted into the beginning to hook a reader. Or they pile on obstacles because they've heard that they have to make it hard for their character to get what they want. But the obstacles aren't intrinsic to that character. When you write to please a reader rather than please yourself, you're losing touch with the original impetus you had to write the story. Plot and structure are important, absolutely. But when you put too much focus on that, you wind up with contrived events and stereotyped characters that don't draw the reader in. And this is where you lose steam and confidence. The best way to approach first drafts is to lock into what's fascinating about the story to you and then probe that more. It's all information for you to put your finger on the pulse of what and who your story is about. So think of writing vertically rather than horizontally. Go deeper rather than longer. You want to lock into why the story matters to you. What fascinates you about this story? Explore that. Slow down where it hurts. Slow down where it fascinates you. When you slow down and probe a particular moment in your story, two things happen. You learn more about who and what your story is about, and you write a more compelling story, a more absorbing story. A story that a reader is eager to read. Clarity comes from engaging with your story, not simply writing what you think a reader would want. What they ultimately want is to connect with your characters. If you're not connecting to your characters, they're not going to get hooked no matter how many plot twists you include. So you want to find yourself in your characters. I was listening to Andrew Scott talk about playing Tom Ripley in the new Netflix series. It's based on Patricia Highsmith's novel, The Talented Mr. Ripley. Now, Tom Ripley is terrifying and not sympathetic at all. He's a grifter, he's a master con man, and he seems to have no morality or conscience at all. At least in this version. Andrew Scott is phenomenal in the role, and the way he approached him was thinking that, yes, he's a con artist, but he's an artist nonetheless. Now, sometimes characters we write about aren't easily accessible to us, especially the antagonists. Sometimes even our protagonist isn't necessarily accessible to us. But you want to think, what part of that character lives within you? When you do that, you're following your curiosities, your own impetus. It gives the story energy. So in the early stages, don't write for an audience. Don't worry if people will like it. It's the wrong question to ask. Write for yourself first. Follow your curiosities. What are you trying to learn through this piece of writing? What fascinates you about this story? Follow that, and you'll find the confidence to keep going. Trust in your own inclinations, your own impetus for writing the story, and your audience will find you. Okay, on to number 2. Set realistic goals. This will help you be more consistent. Now, often writers' goals when they're first starting out are too big and vague, as in, write the novel. That's a very hard goal to shoot for. It's also kind of vague. It puts a lot of pressure on you to produce, and this can be self-defeating. You want to chunk your goals down to manageable goals. If you're just getting started, or this is your first go at writing a novel, you want to start off easy. For example, a great way to start is to keep a story bank. Use the Notes app on your phone. These are ideas that come to you, details, memories, observations. This keeps ideas flowing, and it's good to come back to whenever you feel your creative well drying up. Another very easy way to set a goal is to just write one sentence in the morning, one good sentence. Especially if you're time crunched, just start with one sentence. Or if you want a more moderate goal, write one paragraph. One paragraph a day, one good paragraph. From there, you can graduate to writing one scene. Then you could graduate to writing one chapter. But you don't want to start with writing the novel as your overall goal. You want to chunk it down into smaller, more accessible goals. The point is not to write the book here. It's to master the habit of showing up consistently. You don't have to write a certain amount of words. I think that's the wrong metric. Focus on your experience of the work rather than how many words you write. That's a far better metric, and it leads to a better story. And number 3, follow your excitement. This is how you stay motivated. Whenever you're choosing which direction to take your story next, choose the one that holds the most excitement for you. Even if it's just a little more excitement, you want to follow that. Take it as far as it goes until you can't take it any further. And you want to do this with no assumption, insistence, or expectation of the outcome or how you think it should be. This will lead to the path of least resistance that helps you flow through the writing effortlessly. It will help you connect everything else in your story, even if those connections aren't immediately obvious to you. So follow your excitement. And I want to end with this thought. When you feel like giving up, when you hit a wall, when the writing feels futile, that is the worst time to stop. Now, it may mean that you need to take a break, but you don't want to give up. It's normal to hit those walls. So when you hit a wall, when the writing gets challenging, and it will, that's where your next breakthrough is. Too many writers quit when it gets tough. And if they had just stuck it out a little longer, they would have had their next breakthrough. Staying connected to your story, probing your relationship to your own material is how you find confidence. It's how you write with integrity. So, number 1, process over product. Number 2, set realistic goals. And number 3, follow your excitement. I hope this episode gives you some inspiration to keep going. Remember, you wouldn't have the dream to write the story if you didn't have the talent and capacity to do it. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform and please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.